The Sunrise Diner sat alone along a long stretch of highway where the desert met the mountains. Drivers who passed it often said it looked like a place frozen in time. Chrome trim reflected the morning sun. The red vinyl booths inside had small cracks from decades of travelers sliding in and out. A faded neon sign buzzed softly in the window that simply read, "Open." Every morning before sunrise, Elena Ramirez unlocked the glass front door. She had worked there for 4 years. At 24 years old, Elena moved with the calm rhythm of someone who had spent thousands of mornings doing the exact same thing. Coffee brewed, bacon hit the grill. Pancake batter was mixed in a metal bowl that had been used in the diner longer than she'd been alive. The early crowd was predictable. Truck drivers, 2 highway patrol officers, a retired couple who split a waffle every day at the same booth. But there was one customer who never stepped inside, and Elena never put his order on the bill. The boy arrived at exactly 7:12 every morning, not 7:10, not 7:15, always 7:12. At first Elena had only noticed him because of the way he waited. He didn't knock, he didn't ask, he didn't even look toward the door. He simply sat on the curb beside the diner's side wall, knees tucked to his chest, watching the road like he was waiting for something that never came. The first time Elena saw him clearly was 3 months earlier. She had stepped outside to throw away a trash bag and nearly jumped when she realized someone was sitting there. He looked about 11 years old. Maybe 12. Thin in the way children sometimes get when life forgets to take care of them. His brown hair was messy and uneven, as if he had cut it himself. His hoodie was 2 sizes too big and permanently dusty from the desert wind. But what Elena noticed most were his eyes. They were alert, watchful, like someone who had learned not to trust the world. He didn't say anything when she noticed him, he just stared at the ground. Elena had asked gently, "Are you hungry?" The boy didn't answer. He didn't even look up, but his stomach growled loud enough for both of them to hear. That had been enough. She went back inside, made a plate of scrambled eggs and toast, and brought it outside. When she placed it beside him, the boy looked at the food like it was something fragile that might disappear. Then he ate. Not fast, not like someone starving, but slowly, carefully, like he wanted to make sure it lasted. After that morning, Elena started preparing an extra plate every day. Eggs, toast, sometimes pancakes, sometimes oatmeal. She never asked him to pay. And he never spoke, not a single word. At first Elena assumed he simply didn't want to talk, but after weeks passed she realized something else. The boy couldn't speak. He understood everything she said. He reacted. He nodded sometimes, but his voice never came out. "You know," Elena told him one morning as she sat beside him on the curb, "you don't have to talk if you don't want to." The boy looked at her briefly. His eyes softened. Then he looked back at his food. Inside the diner, Elena's coworker Marcus had noticed. Marcus had worked the grill for nearly 20 years and believed most problems in life could be solved with coffee and common sense. "You feeding that kid again?" Marcus asked one morning as Elena plated bacon. "Yeah, you don't even know where he came from." "I know he's hungry." Marcus shrugged. "Well, fair point." He didn't stop her. No one did, because something about the situation felt quiet, private, like the boy existed slightly outside the world. Over time the routine formed. 7:12. The boy arrived. Elena brought breakfast. He ate beside the wall. Sometimes, when he finished, he left something behind. A small rock shaped like a heart. A drawing scratched onto cardboard. Once, a tiny desert flower. Elena kept them all, in a shoebox under her bed. She didn't know his name, but she knew his habits. Namoro. He hated syrup but liked honey. He always saved half his toast for later, and he always looked toward the empty stretch of highway like he expected someone to appear. One morning, Elena tried something different. She brought out a small notebook and pen. "You don't have to talk," she said gently. "You could write if you want." The boy stared at the notebook. He hesitated, then slowly pushed it back toward her. Elena didn't push again. "Okay," she said softly. Weeks passed. The desert summer slowly cooled into early autumn, and then came the morning when everything changed. It began like any other day. 5:30 a.m., coffee brewing, grill heating, Marcus humming an old song under his breath. Elena checked the clock. 7:10. She plated scrambled eggs, toast and sliced apples. At 7:12 she stepped outside. The curb was empty. Elena frowned. Nothing. 7:20. Still nothing. A small knot formed in her stomach. In 3 months he had never missed a morning. Elena set the plate on the curb anyway. "Host, in case," she whispered. Inside the diner, the breakfast rush picked up, orders stacked, coffee refills, customers laughing. Elena kept glancing toward the window. 7:45. The plate outside sat untouched. By 8:00, Elena's worry had grown into something heavier. She stepped outside again. Still no sign of him, just empty highway, and desert wind. Then she heard it, a distant rhythmic thumping. At first she thought it was construction somewhere beyond the hills, but the sound grew louder, and louder. Customers began looking up from their meals. Marcus stepped out from the kitchen wiping his hands on a towel. "What's that noise?" The entire diner turned toward the window. Elena stepped outside, and froze. 3 black helicopters were descending from the sky. They cut through the morning air like something out of a movie. The first helicopter circled once before landing in the empty dirt lot beside the diner. Dust exploded into the air, napkins flew off tables inside. The second helicopter landed. Then the third. People inside the diner rushed to the windows. Truck drivers stepped outside. Someone whispered, "Is that military?" The helicopter doors opened. Men in dark uniforms jumped out first. Then people in suits, serious, focused, moving quickly. Elena felt her heart start pounding. One of the suited men walked straight toward the diner entrance. He looked like someone used to being obeyed. Tall, gray hair, sharp eyes. He pushed the door open. The diner fell silent. Every conversation stopped. The man scanned the room. Then his eyes landed on Elena. "Are you Elena Ramirez?" Her throat tightened. "Yes." "You've been feeding a boy outside this diner every morning." Elena blinked. "Yes. Is he okay? I was just wondering where he's safe." The man's expression shifted. Not relief. Something deeper. Emotion he was trying to control. "You may have saved his life." Elena stared at him. "I don't understand." The man pulled out a photo. It was the boy, clean, smiling, standing in front of what looked like a large home. "This is Daniel Carter," the man said. "He's been missing for 4 months. Elena's breath caught. "Missing?" "Oh yes." Behind the man, through the diner window, Elena saw movement near the helicopters. A medic stepped aside, and there he was. The boy, Daniel, wrapped in a blanket, standing beside one of the helicopters. He looked smaller than ever. But when his eyes found Elena through the glass, his face changed. Relief flooded it. Elena stepped outside immediately. Daniel saw her coming, and for the first time since she had known him, he ran. He ran across the dirt lot straight toward her. Elena dropped to her knees and caught him as he crashed into her arms. His body shook. He held onto her tightly like someone afraid the world might pull them apart again. "I missed you too," Elena whispered softly. Behind them, the suited man approached slowly. My name is Robert Carter," he said quietly. "Daniel is my grandson." Elena looked at him. "A grandson?" Robert nodded. 4 months ago, Daniel's parents died in a car accident." Elena felt her chest tighten. "He witnessed it," Robert continued. "The trauma caused severe psychological shock. Doctors believe that's why he stopped speaking." Elena glanced down at Daniel. He still clung to her sleeve. "We moved him to stay with relatives," Robert said. But he ran away one night. For 4 months, we searched everywhere." He paused. "We have resources most families don't. Hunt, search teams, drones, investigators. Nothing found him, until 2 days ago." "How did you find him?" Elena asked quietly. Robert exhaled slowly. Satellite monitoring program noticed a small heat signature near the mountains. Daniel had been sleeping in a shallow cave, alone, surviving off scraps. Robert looked toward the diner. "And every morning he walked 2 miles, to come here." He never spoke. Robert nodded. "But when our team found him," he drew a picture. Robert unfolded a small piece of paper. It showed a crude drawing of a diner, and a woman with long hair holding a plate. Elena covered her mouth. "He wouldn't speak," Robert said, but he pointed to the drawing over and over. Daniel finally loosened his grip slightly. He looked up at Elena. His lips trembled. Then something incredible happened. A quiet sound escaped his throat. His voice was rough, unused, barely more than air. "You came." Elena felt tears fall instantly. "Yes," she whispered. "Every day." Daniel nodded slowly, like that fact meant everything. Robert cleared his throat. "Miss Ramirez, I owe you more gratitude than I can express." Elena shook her head. "Lee just made him breakfast." Robert looked at her seriously. "You gave a frightened child something he hadn't felt in months." "What's that?" Robert answered softly. "A consistency." He paused. Daniel trusts you. Elena looked down at the boy beside her. He still held her sleeve. Robert continued, I'd like to ask you something unusual. Elena waited. Come work with our family. Elena blinked. What? Daniel is beginning therapy, Robert explained. But recovery from trauma requires trust, stability. And right now, you're the only person he ran toward instead of away from. Elena looked at Daniel. He didn't let go. I'm just a waitress, she said. Robert smiled gently. Sometimes that's exactly the kind of person someone needs. Daniel looked up again. His voice barely came out. Stay? Elena hesitated for only a moment. Then she nodded. I'll stay. Daniel's shoulders relaxed instantly. Like a weight had been lifted. 6 months later, Elena stood in a bright kitchen far from the desert highway. Sunlight poured through the windows. Daniel sat at the table drawing. He spoke more now. Not much, but enough. Therapy was helping, safety was helping, but mostly, time. Elena placed a plate of pancakes in front of him. Just like the diner, she said. Daniel smiled slightly. Robert entered the room carrying coffee. You know, he said, I drove past the diner last week. Elena raised an eyebrow. Oh, Marcus had put a sign on the window. It read, Home of the best pancakes in the state. Elena laughed softly. Daniel looked up from his drawing. Can we go back someday? Elena smiled. Of course. Daniel nodded, satisfied. Then he went back to drawing. Sometimes the biggest changes in life didn't come from dramatic moments. Sometimes they came from something smaller. A plate of eggs, a quiet routine, showing up every morning, and reminding someone they weren't invisible, because sometimes saving someone's life starts with breakfast.